So let's give it up for Jen Glanz.
Yeah.
Hello, South by Southwest. This is so freaking cool. I woke up this morning and said, yes, I have 2 friends that are going to be there, and that's probably all that's going to be there. So it's super cool to have an audience of humans. My story begins with a phone call about 2.5 years ago, and that phone call completely changed my life. There's actually 2 phone calls, but they were about the same topic. And it was from people that I hadn't spoken to in over 5 years. So when you get phone calls from people you haven't spoken from in over 5 years, your first thought is somebody died, or they won the lottery, and they're calling me up because they want to give me a piece of their cash. I answered the phone, and both of them asked me the very same question. Jen, will you be my bridesmaid? And you might be thinking, Jen, how is that a phone call that completely changed your life? But I said to both of them, really? Me? I don't even remember what you look like. Why are you asking me to walk down the aisle for you? And I wasn't quite sure what to do. That's where my story starts. My name is Jen Glanz. That is not a picture of me, but that picture came with this PowerPoint template, and it was way cuter than I am, so I left it up there. But after I got those 2 phone calls, I went home to my roommate and I said, Carrie, you're not going to believe this. 2 people asked me to be a bridesmaid who I haven't spoken to in years. And she said, it's because you're really good at it. You're on time, you don't get drunk, you don't really flirt with the cute groomsmen because you're too awkward for that. So you're pretty good at it, that's why they asked you. And I think that you've become a professional bridesmaid. And these light bulbs went off in my head and I said, you know what? I think I have become a professional. I've done it a couple times. It's been in my blood, I guess, to always be walking down the aisle. I don't know. And I thought more about it, and I thought about all of the weddings I had been in for my friends, and I remembered that movie, 27 Dresses, and thought to myself, Jen, you are climbing that ladder very quickly toward that 27 dress number. And it was a Friday night, and I remember I was by myself in my apartment, and I said to myself, you know what? If I am a professional bridesmaid, and I can do this so well for my friends, and for friends I haven't spoken to in years, perhaps I could do it for complete strangers. And I knew it was a crazy idea, so I said to myself, where do you launch a business that's off a crazy idea? How about a website that your mother tells you never, ever, ever go on? No matter what you need, don't go on that website. I went on Craigslist.com. And I posted my ad at a Friday night around 11:45 p.m. offering my services as a bridesmaid to complete strangers. I said, if you hire me, I will hold up your dress while you pee, because wearing a wedding dress and peeing is surprisingly very hard. I said, I will dance with that stripper at your bachelorette party, and I will be your bodyguard from all the drama that happens at a wedding, because I knew from all the weddings I had been to that weddings are like Disneyland. You think they're going to be the most magical time of your life, but they're not. They're disgusting. Bad things happen. There's a lot of drama. People are in the same tight area, and it's smelly, and there's just bad things. So I posted this ad, I shut my computer. I had no idea what was going to happen. 2 days later, I opened up my computer again, and I was at work. I had a full-time job as a copywriter at a tech startup, and a friend G chats me and says, Jen, you're not going to believe this. There's an article in BuzzFeed about a girl who's offering her services as a bridesmaid for hire. You should have thought of this idea first. And I read the article and I said, oh my God, what did I just do? And I wrote back to her, I said, I did think of this first, that's me. And she said, I know it's you, Jen, you should have done this. And I was like, no, 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 that's me. I called BuzzFeed.com, I said, I'm the person behind the article, and I Googled the title of the article and I saw that 45 different outlets, media outlets around the world, were writing an article about this ad, calling it a business, saying that I was the founder of a business, that I hadn't even started, talking about packages I didn't even offer, saying that I could come to your wedding as a stranger when I had never even done it. And these sirens went off in my head and I said, you know what, Jen? Capitalize on this opportunity. I went through my email. I had hundreds of emails from brides all around the world who wanted to hire me, and I put together packages, I made a website, I figured all that fun stuff out. But what I did realize starting a business, that a lot of people realize before they start a business, is that you have to have some money. And I didn't have any. I lived in New York City. Every dollar I got from my paycheck went to paying my rent and paying for my pizza addiction. I didn't have a penny. And I realized early on, if you want your business to be successful, you have to drive marketing dollars behind it and advertising dollars behind it and maybe hire a PR company. But I couldn't afford that. But what I did have was my 15 minutes of fame. I had every single news outlet out there wanting to cover my story. And once that went away, I said to myself, Jen, how do you get them back? When you find out what you love, love the hell out of it, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. I don't care if you're sitting in here working a corporate job. I don't care if you're sitting in here and you have a crazy idea in your head you want to start. And I don't care if you're sitting in here and you're the founder of a startup. Whatever it is you're doing, bring out the crazy in it. Find what's different about it and run forward with it, even if nobody understands that at first. That's exactly what I did. And I've worked over 65 weddings for strangers all around the world. But more importantly, and what I'm here to talk about, is I've been in the news for 2.5 years straight, at least once a week. Repeatedly, I've been on the Today Show and Good Morning America and CNBC and Fox News, who calls my job crazy, and I say, yeah, it's crazy, but there's a business idea here. And I've managed to keep this up, not because my business is weird, though it is, but because I found different angles, different stories, different ways of marketing what this is to the public to keep their attention. And that's a lot of what we forget to do when we're doing marketing, when we're doing PR for our companies. So here are some of my personal favorite tips on how to hack the media and how to get your story out there to the world. The first is having a conversation with yourself. This is step number one. Before you can do marketing, before you can do PR, do this for yourself. Answer these questions. When you start a business, you're not starting the business because you want to copy somebody else. Maybe at first that's why you do it, but truthfully, you have something you want to change, something that nobody's doing correctly or that you can do better. So you have to answer these questions. Why you? Why are you the person driving this idea, driving this business? And why right now? What is it about this time? Maybe it's the time that the world is in. Maybe it's the time that your industry is in. Why right now do you want to launch this? And finally, why this? Why what you're doing? Once you've answered these questions, you'll have what I like to call the meat. I'm a vegetarian, but still I talk about meat. You'll have meat that you can then chop up and cook very nicely and serve to the public. But if you don't have this and you say to yourself, I'm a tech startup, or I'm a wedding company, or I'm this, there's a million other companies like that. And nobody's going to want to cover your business or write about you because you're just that. You got to get to the meat of it, of why you're doing what you're doing, why you personally, and why is it this that you're doing. After you've done that, we all know the song 99 Problems, but ain't one. 99 problems, but what's the one people feel but don't talk about? If you're looking to start a business and you don't know what that business is going to be, think about the problems that people have that they don't talk about. In my situation, it was that people's friends didn't always like being their bridesmaid. It's a lot of work. It should be a paid job. Yeah. That's why I decided to start a business where you could pay someone to be a really good bridesmaid and relieve your friends. What are some problems out there in your industry, in similar businesses that are out there, that people feel but they don't always talk about? Those are the types of problems that will tie people together, that will make interesting news, that when reporters see your pitch, they'll think to themselves, I have to write a story about that. Think deep down about what those problems could possibly be. After you've done that, these are all song lyrics, so if you know what the songs are, we're on the same page. I want to be where the people are. Be where your audience is. If your audience, they are mainly on Snapchat, you should be pushing out the majority of content on Snapchat. If your audience reads BuzzFeed, Refinery29, Cosmo, that's where you want to get articles in. You might have a very broad sense and say, I want PR, I want to be everywhere. Everywhere is not going to help you. When the media covered my Bridesmaid for Hire business and magazines like GQ or Men's Health wrote articles, that didn't help my business. That made me have more people, more check marks on my list of media that's covered me, but it didn't help me sales-wise. You want to be in the area that your consumers are, that your audience is in. You don't want to spread yourself so broadly where you're saying, I'm going to hit up all social media channels. Not every audience uses all of the social media channels. So figure out wherever your audience is and make sure that you're there as well. You should go and love yourself. Again, we live in a world where people want to buy things from humans. They don't want to be sold things from big corporations or from robots. They love a good human story. So what's the heartbeat behind your business? What's the heartbeat behind your why you, why now, why this? Why is it that you're doing this? I need to know that story. I need to feel as your customer, as your client, as your audience, what that heartbeat is supposed to be pumping out. I have to know that. The other thing that this quote represents is your own personal brand. A lot of you might work for a company. A lot of you might want to start something up for yourself. What you can start doing right now before you have everything else in line is pushing forward on your personal brand. We really want to strengthen that. We really want to have a brand that speaks to who we are job-wise and who we are personal-wise. Your personal brand shouldn't be John Smith, CEO of this company, or Emily Morgan, Vice President of Advertising. I need to have more meat to it. What do you do for fun? What are some of the things that you like to do when you're not working? Again, we like to have human connection, so your personal brand should connect me to who you are. And why I'm bringing this up in the terms of marketing and PR is because when we're pitching media, we want to pitch them on a human-to-human level. When we're pitching a reporter, if we talk to them like they're just another robot or another person behind a screen, they're going to simply drag our email and put it in the spam folder. But if we have some kind of connection to them, maybe we've checked out their personal brand, we've seen their Twitter feed, we've seen that they enjoy something other than what they're writing about, and we mention that in our email and connect them to pieces of our personal brand, we've built a human-to-human connection, and it's a lot easier for people to want to support you, learn more about your story when you've made this connection. Start from the bottom. A lot of time when we're pitching media, we say to ourselves, I want to be on Fox News, and I want to be on the Today Show, and the Steve Harvey Show sounds really awesome too. But here's the thing, it's very hard to start from the top, and it also takes a lot of work. To be on the Today Show, to be on the Steve Harvey Show, that'll happen to you in two ways. The first is you'll get really lucky. You'll have a very interesting story and they'll contact you. But just like with dating, don't wait for someone to knock on your door. You've got to be very active. So the other way is to email them and be super persistent. And if you send enough emails, you will get on the show. But that might take a year or two. So what you want to do is make sure that you start from the smaller media. You want to start with podcasts. Podcasts are a great way to reach a direct audience. Though they might not be famous podcasts, maybe they're key podcasts in your specific industry. Get on 5 of those. Then pitch local news. Local news is your ticket to the top. If you have a local news outlet cover your story, and it's a good story, chances are other local news in that state will pick it up first. And then if it's a really good story, national news will grab it. So start as local as you can. Do local news, local radio, local magazines and newspapers. A good story will be picked up and go national that way. Start with blogs. Start with key bloggers in your industry, perhaps. Start with the Huffington Post. Start with different websites that aren't so massive and so big, but that you have a chance to get on. And once you're on there, you have a platform. You have press around you. And it's a lot easier to build as you go up from there. So have the mentality of starting from the bottom. When I recently just launched Always Surprise Made for Hire, I'm doing my own PR for the book. And what I realized was I couldn't just call up the Today Show and say, hey, want to have me back on for the 3rd time. I realized again, I had to find a unique angle. Nobody's going to cover just your business or just your book. It has to be a unique angle. What's the meat of the story? What is it that nobody else is talking about, but that they feel deep down in their core? And then I started from the bottom. I reached out to 150 podcasts. I spent all day finding every podcast I wanted to be on and reaching out to 150. Of the 150, 30 said to me, we'd love to have you on. Once I did those 30, other podcasts were listening to those smaller ones and said, we'd like to have you on. And from there, it spins out of control. Different people who listen to podcasts might work at your favorite news outlets, magazines, and newspapers, and then write stories about you. That's why we want to start from the bottom. Take those old records off the shelf, Bob Seger. Don't ever send a press release. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care how much you're paying your PR companies. Never send a press release. People do not read emails that are this long, that with all generic information and quotes from your CEO that the public relations person wrote. Enough with the press releases. I used to work in PR. It was my first job out of college. It was insanely hard because we would send out these generic press releases to the New York Times and call them up and say, hey, do you want to cover this event? And they'd hang up the phone. What I learned is if you want to get on a lot of these national news outlets, you have to be different. You have to write emails that are so crazy. Your subject line should be absolutely nothing about what's inside of the email, but it should be engaging to the reporter you're pitching. Every email to every reporter has to be different. There's no such thing as a generic template you send out to every single news outlet. You have to figure out, what does BuzzFeed's audience care about? That's the pitch you serve them. What does the New York Times audience care about? That's the pitch you serve that reporter. And you don't serve them an email that's going to take them 30 minutes to read, because how many of you spend more than 30 seconds reading an email? I don't see one hand in the sky. We skim our emails super fast, so your email shouldn't have all this nonsense in it. It should say, I'm Jen Glantz, and you give a couple bullet points of what it is you're pitching. Let me know if you want to chat more. The other secret is, don't you dare just send one email and think that's good enough. With PR, if you want to get in the news, you got to send between 8 and 30 emails to the same person. Those of you rolling your eyes or looking at me like, this girl is crazy, that's why she started this crazy business. Let me tell you something about emails that you all know is true. How many of you get more than 5 emails a day? How many of you think you get more than 50 emails a day? How many of you think you get more in the hundreds? All right, we got a lot of hands going up here. Think about somebody who's working at one of these popular media outlets. They probably get close to 1,000 a day. So your email is not going to be seen the first time. Perhaps not the second time, or the 6th time, or the 10th time. But maybe the 15th time it will be seen. That's the trick. You gotta keep following up. And every time you follow up, you have a new piece of information you provide. And every time you follow up, you're one step closer to getting a response. And when you get that no, I love that no. It's a step in the door. They know you exist when you get that no. But eventually you will get a yes. To get on the Today Show, it took me about 55 emails, a couple of phone calls, a couple of, if you don't stop emailing us, we're going to probably do a restraining order. And it finally got on because of that persistence. The last thing I want to tell you about is somebody who changed my life throughout this adventure. I started a business 2.5 years ago and found myself drowning in how to start this entire thing. So I opened up my computer again, and this time I didn't go to Craigslist.com, I just opened up a blank tab, Google, and I Googled free business tutors in New York City because I didn't have $1 to my name to pay anybody. And the lovely city of New York, love that place. I pay so much money for rent and taxes and all that jazz. They matched me with a business tutor who was 86 years old. This is Ray. This is Ray's office in the back of the Manhattan Business Library. And I walked in there on day one, I said, hey Ray, I'm Jen Glantz, I founded Bridesmaid for Hire. And Ray said, there's the door, get out. I don't know what a bridesmaid is. You just spoke to me like you were delivering a speech at the Miss America competition. I don't like you. And I refused to leave because, as you can tell, I'm very persistent. And I'm going to read you just a quick excerpt from Always a Bridesmaid for Hire, which I have to tell you is not a wedding book. Don't judge a book by the name. There's probably 3 wedding stories in this entire book. The rest is about the journey of starting this business from scratch and getting laughed out along the way. And this chapter is about my conversation with Ray. I'm running this business, I say to Ray, and sometimes I realize I have no idea what I'm doing. Stop being so brave, he shouts. I flinch and turn my face toward him, revealing that I am crying, that I am a Miss America wannabe with a missing button on my shirt. Tell me this right now. What is your greatest failure? He says. You know, a hug or lack thereof is quite the epic failure. I'm 2 years away from 30 and the money in my 401k has never reached 4 digits. I fall silent again, hoping he'll pardon me from this exercise, hoping he'll ring a bell and end this conversation because I'm ready to bow out. He doesn't, so I go on. There's my love life. It's quite the cataclysmic mess. Finally, he breaks the silence. Your problem, he says, is that you're too scared to fail, so you don't even move. You want to be successful? He leans in closer, his muzzle fully removed. You have to fail, 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 and fail until you can sit here in front of me and recite every one of those failures so frequently and quickly that I'll get bored and ask you to stop. That's when I know you'll be ready to learn about success. And why I bring this up is because when you're trying to pitch reporters, you're trying to do different marketing campaigns, you don't know what's going to work. You have to keep trying and failing flat on your face. Ray and I have become very good friends over the past 2.5 years, and one of the things he left me with that I wrote in this book is, regret makes you human. We all don't do things all of the time and regret it. But failure, actually trying something and noticing it doesn't work, that makes you a hero. And this is a picture of Ray and I at a fancy dinner that he now takes me to because I was so persistent and I see him once a week, no matter what. He taught me a lot of these lessons that I taught you today, even though he is 86 and doesn't know what a bridesmaid for hire is, even 2.5 years later. My final quote for you is, don't you dare give up. Seriously, don't. That 8th email is magic. I am going to be doing a book signing right outside over here, right when this is over, for Always a Bridesmaid for Hire. Pick up a copy if you want. Again, it's not a wedding book at all. It's a book about my journey from being a Craigslist ad poster to a CEO of a company that's been in the news for 2.5 years, and also all the things I learned from the strangers along the way. There's a chapter in there about how I was on the Steve Harvey show and I accused him on live TV of hitting on me, and then later ran into him on the Rachel Ray show and tried to say sorry. There's a story in there about what it was like getting off a plane and working a wedding as a bridesmaid for hire for a stranger in Minnesota the first time I did it. And there's stories about there on just my own personal life and how all of us have internal struggles, but we can still put those aside and realize we are confident enough, brave enough, and good enough to do whatever it is we dream to do. So if you have questions for me, you want to learn more, please come say hello. I'll be sitting right there. Thank you again for choosing this session as your 10 o'clock session. It means the entire world to me to see all of your faces here. Thank you again for this. Enjoy.